Do you want this to be an active business because it's a real business, or do you just want to be a passive investor and invest with an operator or invest with a fund or invest with another hard money lending operation that's taking on capital? And there's a few things to take into consideration.
Wealth Without Wall Street Tribe, get ready to become your own banker today with Jason Balin. Jason, so glad to have you in the show.
Thanks, Joey. Thanks, Russ. Certainly appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we had your business partner on in the past, Ian, and had a good conversation and thought it was only fair to bring you on and haze you a little bit as well. So thank you for being willing to do it. I know you had me on your show, and I think we're going to have a repeat on that here shortly. So Tribe, the reason we brought Jason in is that you're using infinite banking at the highest level. And many of you are saying, hey, I want to truly become the bank. I want to start lending money against other people's deals, not just my deals, against other people's deals. And Jason is the expert in that space. True?
True.
All right. How many deals? Just so the Tribe has a little background. How many hard money deals have you done to date?
So when we use the word hard money, I'm talking about true hard money, like real hard money, not institutional backed, not selling loans to other capital sources, like using capital that we've raised, friends, family, colleagues, our own money, real private capital. So we've done just over 4,000 loans since the end of 2007.
Is that good, Stallion?
So you're just getting started, basically.
We are. I'm learning something new every day.
Oh, man. All right. So, Tribe, you understand why we brought him on. He is the expert. So Jason, I want to break this down in pieces. Clearly, the first piece is, how do I want to do that? And some people are going to want to be truly passive in that, and some people are going to be active. How do you help people understand the differences between the two?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that we talk to other private lenders and hard money lenders or aspiring lenders all the time. Do you want this to be an active business because it's a real business, or do you just want to be a passive investor and invest with an operator or invest with a fund or invest with another hard money lending operation that's taking on capital? And there's a few things to take into consideration. And I think most people just look at the economics of it and the dollar figure and says, okay, well, if I invest over here with XYZ lender, I can get a 10% return annualized. Not bad, completely passive. But then they'll say, well, if I do this myself, I can make twice as much money. I can lend the money out at 13% and 3 points or 14% and 4 points. Maybe I can, charge some other miscellaneous fees. Maybe I can turn that money more than once a year and I can achieve a 20% return or even higher than that. I kind of want to do that, right? Like a lot of people will just be attracted to that just based on the amount of return. But believe me when I say that it's more than double the work. For double the return, significantly more work to be an active investor compared to a passive investor. And there's no right or wrong. It just depends on who you are, where you are in your life, and kind of what you're trying to achieve in this business.
If you've listened to our show for any length of time, you've heard us talk about infinite banking and how we were able to use that concept to create over $50,000 a month in passive income. But it's just not that easy to figure out, how does this all connect into my own personal system?
Stallion, that's why we created the passive income operating system, bro. It shows you how to turn active income into passive income. It makes all the steps come together. If you would like to get access to it as a podcast listener, we've never given this away in public before, go to what'swhatwallstreet.com/PIOS.
All right, so Jason, let's count the cost for a second. That person that says, maybe I'm interested in the active side of this, walk me through like the day in the life, if you will. Like, I've just decided to do this. I'm going to start doing X, Y, Z steps in order for that loan to be a success. What all goes into that active side?
Well, the hardest part is finding good opportunities and finding deals. And I think in general, most people think, especially if they're newer, that it's easy. Everyone's looking to borrow money, right? Everybody needs money. Well, the people that are, out there and desperate for money probably aren't the right borrowers that you want to lend money to begin with. So the hardest part in this business is finding good deals, like really good opportunities. And when I say like, what's a really good opportunity, it might not necessarily be just that the borrower or the real estate investor is finding a property under market value. Like, are they putting cash into this deal? Like real down payment money into this, not like 10 grand, like real money. Have you looked at their credit to see and potentially background searches to see if they're a good advocate for this? Do they have construction experience? Can they renovate? Do you as a lender have construction experience? Do you even know what the construction costs are going to be? What's reasonable in this? Like, do you know what the value of this property is actually going to be? Like, are you an active real estate agent? Do you have access to MLS? Maybe are you an appraiser? Like, is this property even near you? Or do you live in California and somebody brings you a deal in Maryland and you don't know? It's not just hearsay of, oh, the guy sent me some comps and this is what he told me it's going to be worth. So there's so much on the underwriting side, but there's real costs to, time and money to find opportunities, right? If you have no budget to try to find a deal, like you're doing sweat equity to go to real estate investment groups, meetup groups, trying to hit up real estate agents, mortgage brokers, whoever you can to find opportunities, other real estate investors. If you're trying to market, for deals, direct mail, Facebook ads, Google AdWords, like endless ways to do so. Now, most people, they don't just go all in and spend tons of money and tons of time to do this. They work their way up, right? Maybe they're only looking to do a deal or so, and that's fine. And obviously, costs could be minimal, but there's real time and there's real costs associated with this, and that's just to find a deal, right? There's obviously endless stuff that goes into after that of. Okay, well, who's going to do loan doc preparation for you after you have this all set up and you organize it? Like, the education component is only one part of it, right? It's then, okay, well, who's going to put all these things in place? And believe me, there's a lot of very, very good operators, some that have raised capital themselves, or they have their own capital that can do this by themselves as a one-man band, but their bandwidth is pretty limited, even if they're only doing a few deals here and there, just because it does take time to do it responsibly.
So you're having to do the marketing to find the opportunity, having to have somebody do the admin to actually facilitate the loan, and then you're having to have somebody do the management to make sure people continue to pay you. And then potentially option 4, which is, what do I do if something goes bad, right? So I want to go back to the first thing is, like, talk about your buy box. Like, how do you know, like, you have a very tight criteria in which you're lending against. You spoke a little bit about that, but I want to know what yours are. And then also, as somebody's trying to build that out for themselves, is yours like just single family in a specific area around you? Talk a little bit about what that looks like.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, and I think every other hard money lending company that knows us will attest to this. We're very conservative. We've been around a long period of time. I've done lots of very, very strong deals that have turned out to be bad deals. So I know for a fact that you could have a very clean portfolio and write good loans, and good loans still will default. I've had several borrowers that have died. We've had borrowers that, lost their spouse and they left, rolled out of town. I mean, I did a loan where I lent $175,000. A borrower brought $200,000 to the table, right? So that means they paid $375 for it. And they walked away from the deal because they had enough. They had contractors steal from them. Like, so good deals still default. So know that kind of going into this. And I've learned this over time, right? I was in this business, or I was around this business in, the early 2000s. We started this in 2007. So just from experience, that's all this is. I don't know anything that anyone else couldn't learn or achieve themselves. This is just straight from experience of doing lots and lots of deals and talking to lots and lots of bars and underwriting lots of deals and seeing deals through that, we're conservative and that's what we want. And a lot of the loans that we do, our borrowers are bringing a lot of money to the table. When I say a lot of money, 30-40% into the deal, right? Between down payment and closing costs and things like that, they end up bringing that. Most of them have good credit. That doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has. Sometimes they're lower than that. But we look at all those things to determine if it's a deal that we're comfortable lending. But it's a gamut of 70% of our portfolio is investment residential, single family fix and flips or townhouses. So they're fixing a property to either flip it or sometimes to refinance it into a DSCR loan and hold it as a long-term rental. So 70% of our portfolio is that. 25% of our portfolio is commercial deals, all kinds of different commercial assets, some small office buildings, some self-storage, some retail, some mixed use, some multifamily, and then about 50%. And honestly, on those, we're even more conservative. And the reason why is these are short-term loans. Exit strategies on commercial assets are challenging, right? They're hard. Even if you have a great balance sheet and great financials and a lot of cash and good credit, like it's still hard to get financing on that. So we're a little bit more conservative on those types of deals. And then 5% is just kind of, random, like, hey, I got this property free and clear, can you give me $100,000? It's worth $300,000-$400,000 type of thing. So, so all kinds of real estate assets, but they are, no homeowner stuff, all investment real estate.
And are they close by you? Are they in a geographic area, or are they all over the country?
So what I challenge real estate investors and private lenders in general is, if you're not willing to purchase a property in another state, I wouldn't lend on a different property in another state. Because a lot of lenders will be like, oh, well, I live in this particular state, but I got this real estate investor. They're doing a lot of good things. They referred to me in Indiana, and I live in wherever, Maryland. And I'm thinking about lending to them. It's like, well, what do you know about there? Do you know the laws? Do you have resources if the deal falls apart? Like, you got to learn all that stuff. Do you have boots on the ground to help you? So I'm located in Maryland. And if in Maryland, we're right outside the DC area. So like the DMV area is DC, Maryland, Virginia, right? It just happens that there's 3 states right here. So when we originally started, and you keep in mind, Washington, DC and Baltimore are very different markets, even though they're 45 minutes apart. They're very different markets. But we knew both of them. And we started, and, I probably did 1,000, maybe 1,500 loans until we expanded into a different market. And we expanded our next market was Philadelphia. So we land all over the mid-Atlantic, anywhere from Northern Virginia to Northern New Jersey, if you look on a map. And there's 6 states. And all of those states, you go from one to the other, it's like 4 hours to get from one side all the way to the other side. So it's pretty reasonable. It just happens that there's 6 states, but the barrier to entry to get into all those states, they took time, right? Like we had operators that run our offices that we've been friends with before we turned them into business associates, and they knew those areas. Like our one partner, before we opened up our Philadelphia office, he did 200 fix and flips himself. And then we were like, hey, stop flipping properties. That's a lot of work. Be a lender. It's a lot easier. Go hit up your whole network and let's do some loans through Hard Money Bankers together. So that's how that happened. It wasn't just like put an ad, say, hey, I'm looking for somebody to run a business with me. Like that's how that organically happened. But yes, we only lend local. If I get a deal in Ohio, I don't know anything about Ohio, I'm going to refer it out to somebody else or tell them I pass on it, whatever the case is. We only lend locally. And when we were, if we ever owned real estate, I'm only owning real estate locally as well. I know a lot of people will do things nationwide, and if that's what they're comfortable with, that's fine. But there's too much that goes on, and it's hard enough to manage stuff in your backyard than it is the other side of the country.
Well, I think it's good to be able to hear that. Like, man, there's just not enough deals happening in my town. If I'm going to get into this, whatever the thing is, whether it's hard money lending or any business, I'm going to have to expand outside of that. And oftentimes that's not the case. And when you expand outside of that, then you start expanding outside of your comfort level, your knowledge. There starts entering other, different jurisdictions. There's all sort of rules, as you were saying, that helps you or could prevent you from making money. How many deals do you see in order to do one? I think that's a question people want to know. Like, I think sometimes people see deal, do deal. But for you, what is that ratio most likely?
I don't want to scare people by this answer because, I don't want to prevent people from being lenders because I think it's powerful. I run a mastermind group of lots of very good lenders throughout the country, and their numbers are very different than mine, and they have a very good business. But it's, close to 1 in 100. It's a very low number. And now keep in mind that a lot of our borrowers are repeat borrowers at this point. So the numbers are a little bit skewed on that. But we use the term lead as like loan application, inquiry, contact. So people are filling out our loan application. They're texting us. They're emailing us. They're calling us on the phone. A lot of people just aren't qualified right now, and they're just in early stages. So that's how many kind of point of contacts. I would say realistically, a good lender probably needs to see 30 deals to do one, or a few dozen to do one. I mean, if you're talking to 5 people and 4 of them you're doing a loan for, like something's wrong. What you create your metrics. I mean, there's a lot of folks that I've worked with over the years, and they're given 100% financing. Their terms are cheaper than the industry terms, and I'm like, that's why you're doing so many deals for these guys with no marketing, no lead flow. Nobody's ever going to leave you if you're giving them 100% financing and you're under market. And like, here's the hard truth about this business in general, especially over the last decade. You could do one bad deal or you could do a lot of bad deals. You don't even know it's a bad deal half the time because it performed and the real estate market improved. It's appreciated, right? So like, you did a loan and you thought the property was worth 200 and it sold for 225 and you're a hero. So like, there's too many folks in this space that have done that. They've given high leverage. They're lending out cheaper than they need to lend out with, and the deal performs. I mean, I've looked back and we've done bad deals in the past that performed, and we'll look back and we're like, geez, that was a really crappy deal. Why did we do that? That borrower was an idiot. Like there was no reason for us to do that deal. Like, we made a bad decision, but it still worked out. But I've also, been on the other side of that, where we did a bad deal and it bit us. It bit us in the butt for doing a bad deal. So and that's challenging to like see that, right? Because it's like, well, I've never had a default. I've done 30 deals with my own money. I use my self-directed IRA or something, and I've never done a bad deal. And I always give 100% financing. And it's like, that's right. But like, what happens when Wells Fargo does one bad deal? Like, they can write that off.
Right.
If you're using your self-directed IRA or whatever, anything that you want.
Those are cuss words on our show, by the way.
Yeah, I know. A whole life insurance policy. I apologize. I apologize.
Hey, it's okay. Hey, we'll take 99% value, 1% mistakes, right? Like, that happens.
But whatever. Say you're using your own cash. Let's say you have $1 million and you want to lend it out. Is cash a bad word too?
Well, so we like cash value, but we get the point. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
This is the most expensive. Go ahead.
Yeah. But you do 30 good deals. Let's say you do 30 good deals in a year, and then you do that same exact deal to somebody else, and it's a few $100,000, and you get wiped out because you did a bad deal, or you didn't have title insurance because you didn't know better, or you have a contested foreclosure, and then you do the loan docs yourself, and you don't even realize that they don't hold up in your state. So there's endless things that could go wrong. So really, what I'll tell people is, listen, that's the way you did it in the past. That's okay. Maybe you have a few good borrowers and you don't want to take a step backwards. You want to keep that income coming in, continue to do those, those sweetheart deals for those borrowers, but moving forward, be responsible. Start making the borrowers bring more money to the table, up your fees, make sure you have, the right legal counsel to do your loan docs. Like, you gotta continue to improve, because eventually, you're going to get bit for it.
There was nothing worse than walking into class when you're in school and the teacher saying, "Pop quiz day." Why? Because you were unprepared. Are you unprepared, though, for financial freedom?
Don't be. Find out how close you are by taking our 30-second quiz at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/quiz.
Tribe, if you're still searching for what is going to be that passive income source that's going to push you over the hump, it's going to help you become financially free, head over to the Art of Passive Income podcast, where our friend Mark Podolsky breaks down his amazing land flipping method.
You've heard us talk about how this one strategy has created over $30,000 a month in passive income for Russ and I. Do yourself a favor, wherever you listen to podcasts, go hit the subscribe button to the Art of Passive Income podcast today.
I would like you to talk a little bit about the legal side, not only just the documentation that's needed, but also, I mean, there's a lot of rules that have changed that I don't think the average person who goes out there and just starts lending money realizes they may be breaking some laws. What are those limitations of when you have to register some of this, or when you have to get certain licensing when you're doing a number of deals?
Yep. Full disclosure, not an attorney. I got to start with that. So do whatever you see is fit. Most states don't have lender licensing requirements for investment property loans made out to a business entity. So if you lend money to a business entity and you lend out to a business entity and you're lending on an investment piece of real estate, not a homeowner or property. And if it's a refinance, you're not using the cash for a personal purpose, only for investment use. a lot of states, and when I say this, we did a podcast with Kevin Kim from Garassi Law Firm. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. I personally don't use them, but I interviewed him, and this is how we act in our business, and I'm just going to state what he told me. And he's an authority figure in this space on the legal side. So a lot of them don't have licenses. A lot of the West Coast states do, Nevada, Arizona, California, and things like that. But a lot of them don't have licenses as long as you follow that. The states that we lend in, there's no license to get. So I can't get a license because there's not a license for me to actually get. And anyone, for the most part, can be a lender, a co-lender, to do so. So that side, for the most part, is pretty clean. Now, again, these are for investment properties. There's typically an argument of what you can charge in different states. So we're pretty comfortable in the majority of the states that we lend in that we can charge up to a 24% interest rate if we wanted to. We charge a 13% interest rate, but we have late fees and points, and we have a default interest that goes up on stuff like that. I've foreclosed in every 6 states that we've lent in. I've had contested foreclosures on every one of them, and every single one of them is held out in court when that's happened. But Florida, for instance, I think they have, and it's not even called a commercial usury because that's not even really what the term is. But on a foreclosure there, typically that's up to 18%. In the state of Tennessee, we have a member of our group that says they have a hard time getting over 12 or 13% on some of their stuff. So the first side is do you need a license to lend? How much can you charge? Right? Is there any sort of usury or commercial usury on these particular things? And this is a niche business. So if you talk to a normal attorney that represents mortgage companies, chances are they're more consumer focused than commercial focused. So that's the step one, is you need to find one in your state that knows that, because most don't. It's just a niche. It's a way small segment of the market. So you got to make sure you're doing kind of all of this compliance. So that's the first side of this, on the legal side. And I can expand on some stuff if you want.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful to understand that there's a big ball of understanding behind the scenes that people just can't just jump into this and just say, oh, there's a guy down the street in my state. If you haven't done this due diligence and this research, besides the fact that Russ immediately was out of this business the first 30 seconds of our conversation, because he was like, whoa, this is way too much work.
When you said the word active, I was like, oh, I don't know about that.
He was immediately out. But for the person that says, okay, I'm still interested in this idea, I'm just now trying to figure out the capital side of this. I have some to start with. Is it too much, too little? I don't think too much would be a problem, but too little. And then how do people scale if they start to really enjoy this? Talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So raising capital in this space, there's a few different models, right? You can do a traditional fund.
Start first. Hey, I've got, is it 250 before I would really even consider this? Is it 100,000? Where would somebody say, yeah, I could probably get into the game if I have this much of my own capital?
I mean, so it depends on what your goal is, right? There's, if you have a full-time job and you're happy with it and you're just trying to make a higher rate of return on your own personal money and you don't want somebody else to actively manage it for you, then again, it's just like buying a piece of real estate, a rental property. It's like, hey, are you happy with $500 of extra cash flow every month? Is that what you're comfortable with? The way I look at it is, if you're going to deploy $100,000 into a deal, you're probably going to make, $1,000, $1,500 a month, from that, depending on your interest rate return that you're sending out, maybe $2,000 with points and other stuff and things. So it just depends on how you want to grow it. A lot of the lenders that I know, they're in our mastermind group and things like that, they typically start out with some of their own money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions of dollars. And they start with that to start lending out. And then they start going to raise capital, and they'll either do it, through a fund. Typically, funds are somewhat cost prohibited in this space unless you have maybe $10+ million deployed, based on what the legal costs are and everything like that. It gets a little bit expensive to do that. So that's an option. You can fund note yourself and sell them to investors afterwards. Right. So that's an option, right? It's a $100,000 loan. I close it under Hard Money Banker's name with my money. And then, there's a we like to call it co-lender. We don't really like to use the term investor, but if a co-lender, wants to be involved in that, we sell them the note. Maybe we retain a piece, maybe we don't. Let's just say we sell them the whole note. So that's an option. You can also do some sort of participation with them. You can be involved, or you can have multiple lenders be involved, and you do some sort of participation where you assign the note directly to them. There's a lot of different options. I would say keep things simple at the beginning. If you have liquidity yourself and you have money to deploy yourself, do it yourself. Maybe bring another friend or family member in that's got some money as well, and maybe do like a split on the note where you guys are both a 50-50. You both have 50-50 interest, undivided interest in the first note position. So it's $100,000 note. Joey puts up 50 grand, Russ puts up 50,000. You guys are undivided interest in the first position of it, and and just keep it simple.
Like Joey does all the work. Yes, I'm in.
No,
then you just do care of Joey's entity, and all monthly payments go to him, and all mortgage statements go out to him, and he can send a 1099 INT to you. He can send a 1098 to the bar, and keep it all kinds of fun.
Well, talk about this, Jason. Your favorite deal that you ever done, if there's one that stands out that you're like, man, I wish I could have done 100 of these.
I don't know if I have a favorite deal. I mean, listen. There's deals that we made a lot of money on that were headaches. There's deals that we, made little money on that was easy. Like, I like bread and butter deals. I like very simple deals. In our space, I want to lend money to good borrowers that are going to perform, that are going to pay off, that I'm going to have very little headache on. Like and I want to, we want to do those every day. My business partner, Chris, that owns Hard Money Bankers with me, like, we joke that we hit singles pretty much every day. Every once in a while, a double, never triples, never home runs in this space. But we're hitting singles, and we have the mindset. I think this kind of meets our personality, that we've been like this for 17 years. I've never been like this. I'm scared if I go like this. And if I know some people are listening to this on audio, but in essence, I'm pointing like our trajectory is growing steadily. Slow and steady wins the race. But I've never just gone straight up in the air, because I'm terrified I'm going to come straight back down as quick as I go up. So we're good at hitting singles. And I like hitting singles every day. What I mean by that is just a bread and butter deal where a borrower, real estate investor, has a little bit of experience, knows what they're doing. They find a good deal. They come to us. Let's just say they're buying it for $200,000 and it needs $40,000 in construction. So it's like a $240,000 deal. I'll tell them up front, be like, hey, I'm going to make your life really easy on this. You might have to bring a little bit more cash to the table than you normally would want, but it's going to be an easy transaction. We'll close this week. We'll get construction draws out to you. Very, very simple. You're never going to hear from me. It's going to be very simple. We'll do a $160,000 loan, hold back 40 for construction or something like that, and they'll bring a decent amount of cash to the table on that deal, and they'll go and they'll perform, and they'll make all payments are through ACH. It'll be an easy transaction. They'll pay us off in 4 or 5 months. They'll make 50 grand on the deal. We'll make $10,000 on the deal between our points, our points and our fees. We'll make more than that. But one thing I noted is every deal that we do, we charge $12.99. And our co-lender / capital investor gets a 10% return. A lot of deals, that's me or Chris, my business partner, or one of our business entities. But we treat the capital as 10%, just like we would treat it to a normal capital investor. So it's note rate -3. So, in essence, 2.99. So for every $100,000, if for every year we're making $3,000 servicing for that. So that's where I'm coming up with that number. But long story short, we'd make our $10,000. It'd be an easy transaction. Personally, it wouldn't take me a lot of time. Or my team a lot of time. I don't have anyone on our team having to chase people around for payments, or, how do I get into the property to do a construction? The guy never showed up to do the walkthrough. It's just an easy transaction. The borrower makes good money, and I can do 5 or 6 deals like that for that same person every year. And it's just a very easy transaction all along. So those are my absolute favorite deals, and we churn through those regularly. And, we try to get our hands on as many of those as possible. There's obviously been much larger deals that we made more money on. Some of them were easy, some were headaches, but I just want simple, $200,000-$300,000 deals. That's my bread and butter personally.
All right, tribe. Did you hear that? I mean, he literally just broke down. You don't have to swing for the fences. This is Moneyball. Our game is to not lose money. Stack it on top of each other. Get to financial freedom as fast as possible, but as safe as possible too. Stay within your lane. Create a buy box. Stick to it. That means you're going to turn down a lot of deals because they don't fit your buy box. If you don't have one of those, you don't even know. That's why you're going to get emotional. You're going to make bad decisions. But also knowing that you can make singles and even doubles every once in a while and have the success that Jason and his partners are doing. Jason, if somebody listening is like, man, this is for me, but I need a coach. I need somebody to help me through this process. I need to be surrounded by other high-level investors who are doing this. Where would you send them? How would they connect with you?
Two different ways. Private Lenders Podcast is our weekly show. We do it twice a week, technically, Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's a great platform. We've done a few hundred episodes, and they're quick 10-minute, 15-minute segments called Private Lenders Podcast. It's a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and it's also on YouTube. And it's a great way. I mean, believe me, I get a lot of value, and definitely feel humble when people reach out to me and be like, hey, I just spent the last week listening to you literally for a week, and there's 250 episodes on there nonstop because no one else is talking about this or teaching this because there isn't. Like, go search up, how do I become my own lender and my private lender? How to become a hard money lender? They don't talk about this. I wish they had this 17 years ago when we started. With the people that I had to talk to were like old rich attorneys that owned law firms. Those were the only ones lending out privately back then. And I was in my 20s, and these guys were in their 70s, and I had to be like, I'll buy you lunch, I'll do whatever. Like, teach me how to do some of this stuff. Like, I don't know. So that's a good way to look at some stuff. And then if you're ready to take it to a higher level, hardmoneymastermind.com. Hardmoneymastermind.com is our whole online group. We started 6 or 7 years ago. Got about 2,700 private lenders and hard money lenders. Some are just starting out, and there's some folks in the group that have $100 million in deployed at any given time. Our company's got $50 million deployed at any given time. And, my partner, Chris, and I are in there discussing. Our joke around the office of why we started that group to begin with is Chris and I geek out about this all the time. It's all we talk about. It's the only thing we talk about all day. So we're like, let's just throw a camera on us and talk about it this way, because we got to share this with the world, because we're just not that we're keeping this to ourselves, but nobody else understands it. Nobody knows what a hard money lender is. It sounds like a bad word, right? It's like they don't know. Oh, you're just a hard cash lender, a hard money this, a hard this. So we talk about it all the time. So we're like, let's just throw a camera on us and talk. And surprisingly, there is a lot of interest in this topic. So glad we're able to provide that. And I love watching lenders grow. It's a good thing when you start seeing a lender who doesn't fully, they have a good amount of money deployed irresponsibly, and I'm like, hey, you got to clean this up. And then they'll circle back with you a year or two later. It's like, hey, my portfolio is significantly cleaner than before. I appreciate all your help.
Man, this is so good. Thank you so much for bringing value to the world. Thank you for coming on and sharing it with our group as well. Tribe, if you're interested in truly becoming your own bank and where you're going to become a hard money lender, reach out to Jason. Go to his team. Go to hardmoneymastermind.com. Follow them on their podcast. This is an opportunity for you to level up in this specific space. Have an amazing day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.